Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Milo Avery moved to his grandfather's remote lake estate, he sought peace. What he got was war. A ruthless HOA, a forged map, and a weaponized lie would turn one man's paradise into a battleground. This isn't just about land, it's about power, and Milo won't back down. When I first pulled up the gravel driveway and saw the reflection of the sun slicing across the still water of Wolf Mirror Lake, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: ownership. Not the kind of ownership you feel holding a title or a deed, but the visceral, blood-in-the-dirt kind. This land wasn't just mine. It was built, shaped, and protected by my family, back when people still understood what the word private meant. I'm Milo Avery, 38 years old, ex-federal land surveyor for the Department of the Interior. These days, I consult privately. Hydrology mostly, reservoir compliance, dam inspections, the kind of thing that makes people's eyes glaze over unless a flood is involved. But this was never just a project. My grandfather, Thomas Avery, spent the better part of the 1970s transforming what was once a floodplain into a controlled basin. With permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and enough paperwork to choke a moose, he dammed the runoff, shaped the shore, and created the lake from scratch. It wasn't scenic coincidence. It was engineering. When I inherited the property, all of it came with me. The lake, the dam, the house, the land surrounding it for nearly 30 acres. The title was cleaner than hospital-grade stainless steel. It was outside any HOA jurisdiction, carved out decades before the neighbors started sprouting up on the East Ridge like mushrooms after a storm. I'd been living there full-time for just over a year. I renovated the old lodge into something resembling modern comfort, added a solar system, installed a smart gate with cameras, and built a floating dock and a fire-lit gazebo overlooking the water. My contract work gave me flexibility, and I'd finally decided to stop renting overpriced boxes in the city. I wanted peace. I wanted quiet. I got neither. It started subtle. A group of kids walking across the far side of the lake, cutting through the underbrush like they'd done it before. Then came the beer cans on my lawn, the barbecue smell drifting over the water on Saturday afternoons. One morning, I woke up to the sound of laughter echoing across the lake, only to find 4 aluminum canoes beached on my southern shore. There were families setting up tents in the open space near the gazebo, my gazebo. Someone even strung fairy lights across the damn thing. I thought maybe it was a one-off. A church group, maybe. A family reunion that got turned around. But the following weekend, it happened again. Then again. Each time, the crowd got bigger. Tents, speakers, folding tables, dogs running off leash. Some guy trying to fish off my dock like he owned it. They left trash, trampled my grass, and someone even had the balls to screw a plastic hook into one of my trees to hang a hammock. The final straw. I walked out one Sunday morning, coffee in hand, only to find someone had tied a pontoon boat to my dock. I don't even own a pontoon boat. There were kids diving off the edge of the pier like it was a public pool. A woman sunbathing on one of my Adirondack chairs, scrolling on her phone like she was at a damn resort. And not a single person had asked for permission. Not once. So I walked over, calmly. No yelling, no theatrics. I passed by a group grilling hot dogs next to the fire pit I built with my own hands and approached the woman lounging on my property like it was a rented Airbnb. Before I could even open my mouth, she turned and gave me a tight smile. "You must be Milo," she said. "I'm Karen Devlin. I'm the HOA president over at Blue Shores." She gestured vaguely toward the eastern bank, where a line of overpriced vinyl and stone houses had been stamped out in tidy rows. "Karen," I said slowly, "this is private property, this entire lake, and everything on this side of the waterline is part of my deed. You're trespassing." Karen let out a condescending laugh, like I'd just told her the sky was green. "Sweetie," she said, "that's adorable, but the lake touches our lots too. You can't just own a lake. It's water. It's shared. And this spot is where we've held our annual neighborhood gathering for the past 5 years." I blinked. "You've been doing this for 5 years?" She shrugged. "Well, maybe not always with tents and grills, but yes, we assume no one lived here. It's always been available." "It was never available," I snapped. "Just because someone didn't stop you doesn't mean it was public. This isn't some forgotten trailhead. This is mine. The dock, the grass, the gazebo, mine. Karen stood, adjusting her massive sunglasses. Milo, we're not here to fight. We're a community. The lake's part of our lives, too. Maybe you could loosen up a bit and be neighborly. She said it with a smile, like she was doing me a favor. I looked around at the chaos. Kids splashing near the dam spillway, someone blasting music from a Bluetooth speaker, a teenager pissing behind a tree, and felt something tighten in my chest. Pack it up, I said. You've got 15 minutes. Karen's smile evaporated. You're serious? Deadly. She crossed her arms, scanned the shoreline like she was gauging her numbers, and said, We'll see what the sheriff has to say about that. And just like that, she turned and walked off, her flip-flops smacking the stone. Path as if she'd just claimed victory. Like this was some kind of petty boundary dispute and not the opening salvo in a full-blown war. I stood there on my own land, watching my coffee go cold, and realized something chilling. She really believed this lake was hers. The following weekend, they came back. Not some of them. All of them. Like the eviction never happened. Like I hadn't told them to get off my property. Like the gazebo, the dock, the shoreline. None of it belonged to me. There were even more people this time. At least 30 heads bobbing around the shore. A DJ booth, an actual DJ booth, had been set up under the pines, and someone was dragging a propane grill across my lawn, scraping the wood of the picnic table I'd just refinished. They had speakers, folding tables with HOA branded signs, and a stack of inflatable paddleboards leaning against my shed. My shed. It wasn't a party anymore. It was a full-blown HOA-sponsored invasion. I walked out to the edge of the property line and stood there with my arms crossed, watching some guy in cargo shorts hook an extension cord into my exterior outlet. I shouted over the music, "Unplug that or I'm calling the cops." He gave me the middle finger without even turning around. Fine. I went back into the house, closed the blinds, locked the door, and calmly dialed the sheriff's non-emergency line. I explained the situation. Private lake, deeded property, trespassers refusing to leave. The dispatcher said someone would be dispatched shortly, and then it all went straight to hell. About 10 minutes later, I saw flashing lights, but they weren't mine. An SUV marked emergency response came barreling down the dirt access trail between my trees. It wasn't the sheriff. It was 911. Someone had called them in a panic. Next thing I know, 2 deputies and 1 EMT are jogging across the grass toward the lake. I step outside, assuming they're here because someone tripped on a root or burnt their fingers on a grill. Nope. One of the deputies sees me, reaches for his belt, and barks, "Hands! Let me see your hands!" I blink, stunned, but comply. What the hell is going on? "Sir, we received a 911 call reporting a man with a firearm threatening children near the dock. Are you armed?" "What? No. I'm the one who owns this damn dock. Keep your hands where we can see them." Next thing I know, I'm face down on my own deck, cuffed like some psycho. The EMT checking in with Karen, who is now consoling 2 teenagers wrapped in beach towels like they've just survived Normandy. "He came out of the woods yelling," she told them. "I was afraid he'd snap. We didn't even know he lived here. The kids were terrified." She said that while staring directly at me, smiling. I don't know if you've ever been zip-tied on your own property while children eat popsicles 10 feet away, and a smug Karen nods at the responding officers like she's hosting a bake sale. But it does something to your soul. One of the deputies pulls my wallet, runs my ID, and starts making confused noises as he scrolls through something on his tablet. "You're Milo Avery?" he finally asks. "Yes," I hiss. "The owner. Look inside the house. Top drawer of the desk. You'll find the deed, the boundary map, the dam inspection reports, the full title chain. Go nuts." The other deputy goes silent for a while. Then slowly, one by one, they start piecing it together. My property, my shoreline, my gazebo, my dock. After 15 minutes of paperwork, apologies, and muttered misunderstandings, they remove the cuffs. One of them even offers to help clear the crowd, but Karen's already walking up with a clipboard and a politician's smile. "I'm so glad we could resolve this peacefully," she tells the officers. "Clearly, there's just a bit of confusion about the lake boundaries." "Karen," I say through clenched teeth, "get your people off my land." She raises a brow. "Milo, it's a community event, our annual tradition. You've stirred up a lot of drama over something that's supposed to be inclusive. We're just trying to celebrate summer. It's not like anyone's hurting anything. You falsely called 911 on a landowner. That's a crime." She shrugs. Well, from where I stood, it looked like a threat. and the HOA has always had access to the water. You can't just suddenly cut people off. I glance at the deputies. Neither is moving. One is very intentionally studying his notepad. The other mutters something about civil matters and needing to review the situation further. I watch, powerless, as Karen returns to her flock, raising her wine glass as someone hands her a burger, like she's just claimed beachfront Normandy. The music picks up again. I head back inside, grab my files, scan everything. I'm not calling the sheriff again. I'm going higher. The next morning, I file a formal report for false 911 call, trespassing, destruction of property, illegal use of utilities. I attach images of the lake's legal perimeter, GPS boundary markers registered with the county, photos of the damage, and a highlighted clause from the original dam construction permit stating full rights of use and maintenance belong solely to the private landholder, me. But I'm not stopping there. Karen just made a move. Now it's my turn. I didn't sleep much after that weekend. Every creak of the porch sounded like another teenager dragging a cooler across my deck. Every rustle in the trees made me reach for the window blinds, expecting to see another tent, another barbecue, another smug HOA member claiming squatters' rights with a goddamn smile. But I wasn't going to sit around sulking in my own house like a hostage. If they wanted to turn this into a legal mess, they'd find out I wasn't some crank with a bad attitude and a copy of Property Law for Dummies. I'd been mapping land boundaries professionally since I was 22. I've worked with federal engineers, county clerks, water rights inspectors. My gloves weren't just coming off, they were being replaced with surgical ones because I was about to go full forensic. I started with the basics, dug out every document my grandfather ever filed regarding the creation of the lake. Most of it was in fireproof lockboxes, the kind that smell like stale paper and old wars. Among them, the original 1974 permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, authorizing the construction of a small containment dam for private water retention. It wasn't just a pond project. It was a full structural plan with hydrological impact studies, dam maintenance obligations, spillway control rights, and, most importantly, a clause that made my blood sing: retention zone designated as private use, non-navigable, non-public access. I compared that with the GPS-registered parcel data I had updated when I inherited the land. The lake, shoreline, and dam all fell squarely within my property lines, confirmed and stamped by the county assessor's office not once but twice over the past decade. I even had the revised digital overlay from a recent state compliance check on small reservoirs, which explicitly labeled Wolf Mirror Lake as privately managed. So how the hell was Karen getting away with this shared lake fantasy? I had a suspicion. I reached out to a contact of mine, Cynthia Marks, who works in land use and records for the county. We'd done a few dry land easement reviews together years ago. I bought her lunch under the pretense of needing a quick peek at HOA boundary filings. She showed up with a tablet, a tired smile, and a story that made me wish I had brought bourbon instead of burgers. Turns out 6 months ago, Blue Shores Preserve HOA had submitted an updated community map to the county, and on that map, guess what magically appeared? A faint dotted line that extended the HOA's community recreation zone to include a section of shoreline right up to the waterline on my side of the lake. It was subtle, probably drawn by someone who figured no one would look twice. It didn't reflect parcel ownership, it wasn't legally binding, but it was filed. Looks like someone's been playing cartographer, I muttered. Cynthia gave me a knowing look. It's not official, but sometimes these things stick. Enough people believe it, and suddenly it becomes historical use, especially if they can show photos or affidavits from residents. Even if they're wrong, she shrugged. Public opinion can move fast. The law takes its time catching up. I asked her for a copy of the map, then I asked her who filed it. The answer didn't surprise me: Karen Devlin. The HOA president herself had submitted the revised map, citing alignment with neighborhood historical use patterns. Historical use, my ass! I drove straight home and pulled out a binder labeled Wolf Mirror Aerial Survey Archive. My grandfather had kept everything: paper photos, grayscale satellite prints, even slides. I found images dated back to 1975 showing untouched woods on the HOA side and absolutely no infrastructure or trail access to the lake from that end. I found annotated maps showing my grandfather's quiet zone designations. Not a single documented dock, trail, or access point from any HOA lot for over 40 years. In a plastic sleeve was a copy of a private agreement signed between my grandfather and the county's Water Resources Department in 1982. It reinforced that the dam, and by extension the lake, was not a public utility. The language couldn't be clearer. Any unauthorized use of this body of water by non-title holding individuals or groups shall be considered trespass under county ordinance. I scanned every relevant document, watermarked them, and organized them into a digital folder titled, "They Want a War? Here's the Armory." Then I made one more call to an attorney, not just any attorney, a specialist in property boundary disputes and HOA overreach. I didn't need a courtroom cowboy. I needed a scalpel. Her name was Alex Lynn, based out of Asheville, reputation for surgical takedowns of abusive HOAs, and a particular fondness for case law involving misuse of shared resources. She didn't even flinch when I explained the situation. "Karen Devlin," she asked, "from Blue Shores, you're not her first victim." That was a sentence that made my day. We agreed to start with a formal notification outlining property boundaries, citing historical records, including a cease and desist letter directed at both the HOA and Karen personally. It would be polite, procedural, legally precise. But it would land like a punch to the gut, because this time I wasn't just defending my dock. I was coming after her map. The letter went out on a Thursday. Cease and desist, 3 pages long, on clean white legal stock, with my attorney's header stamped at the top like a warning shot from a howitzer. Karen was served in person. I knew because the process server sent me a text with a photo of her face frozen in what could only be described as offended suburban royalty. I expected fallout, maybe pushback from the HOA board. Maybe another wave of Facebook passive aggression. What I didn't expect was the damn landscaping project. I woke up Sunday morning to the sound of shovels hitting dirt. That was never a good sound in my world. I looked out of the front window and saw them. Half a dozen men in Blue Shores HOA shirts unloading bags of mulch and laying down what looked suspiciously like crushed gravel across the tree line bordering my southern slope. I pulled on my boots and made the walk down the wooded trail, and what I saw made me laugh out loud. Short, sharp, one of those bitter laughs that tastes like battery acid. Karen and her army had built a pathway, a literal walking trail about 4 feet wide, complete with cheap wood frame steps carved into the incline. It cut directly across the corner of my land, ran past my water tanks, and terminated near the edge of my fire pit like a goddamn nature preserve entrance. But that wasn't the worst of it. They'd installed signs. Wooden signs screwed into posts, all stained and weather-sealed, with neat white lettering that read, "Public Lake Access, Blue Shores Preserve Trail, HOA Recreational Entry, Respect Nature, No Loud Music After 10 p.m. One of them even had a faux historic plaque, established 1998, Traditional Community Access Route. I nearly choked. Traditional. The only tradition on this side of the lake was me not shooting at deer because I liked watching them. Karen appeared from the brush like some kind of smug forest spirit, arms folded, flanked by 2 board members with clipboards. She looked at me like I was the one trespassing. "Morning," she said. "Beautiful weather for a trail walk. You're out of your mind." "It's a restoration," she replied smoothly. "We've always had foot traffic through here. We're just making it safer, ADA accessible even." I was too stunned to respond for a second. Then I said, "You're building a trespass expressway." She smiled. "Well, that's your opinion. But under community doctrine, we have rights to improve historically used access points. And since you've started limiting boat launch access, our members need safe shoreline approach." That's when it hit me. She was laying groundwork. A paper trail. Physical evidence. Fake historic access backed up by manufactured infrastructure and bogus trail signs. It was like watching someone forge a crime scene in real time. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I took photos. Every sign. Every post. Every board. Then I walked the entire length of the fake trail and filmed it on my phone. Narrated it like a documentary. This is the illegal footpath constructed by Blue Shores HOA members without landowner consent. Coordinates, north slope 31 feet inside private property boundaries. The so-called historic plaque is a lie. See time-stamped satellite images from 1998. Nothing here but pine trees and deer crap. Then I deployed the countermeasures. Step 1. Motion detecting cameras hidden inside solar birdhouses. They'd capture everything. Night, day, rain, shine. The trail would be lit up like a casino for trespassing. Step 2. New signs. Bigger, nastier, less polite. Private property. No access. Trespassers will be prosecuted under North Carolina Code. Warning. Active surveillance zone. Footage sent to Sheriff's Department. Step 3. A geofenced perimeter notification system that pinged my phone anytime someone crossed into the newly violated zone. By Tuesday, I had video footage of at least 20 different HOA members strolling through like it was Disneyland. One of them was dragging a kayak. Another was letting their dog take a dump near my generator shack. But the crown jewel, Karen giving a tour to what looked like a prospective buyer. She pointed to the dock and said, "That area used to be common space, but the current resident doesn't recognize community customs. We're working through it." I could feel the lawsuit forming in her throat. But I wasn't just collecting dirt. I was organizing it. By Friday, I had an online archive sorted by event with timestamps, GPS overlays, sign close-ups, and face captures. I even added polite subtitles just in case the court needed help identifying the smug idiots violating property law. Then I called Alex, my attorney. She looked through the archive and said, "Jesus, you've basically created a surveillance-grade HOA horror movie." That's the plan. She gave me the green light to issue a formal notice of intent to litigate. This was different from the cease and desist. It was a legal missile. It went to Karen, the HOA board, and the county records office. It included a 26-page exhibit packet showing that no easement existed or had ever existed. No historical trail had ever been approved or recorded. The signs were fraudulent, the construction unpermitted. The so-called access path crossed into restricted environmental buffer zones. It also stated, in plain English, that continued trespassing would result in both civil and criminal action. Karen didn't answer the letter, but she didn't stop either, and somehow, I knew the worst was yet to come. The following week, things got quieter. No kids on the dock, no grills, no folding chairs. The trail was still there, untouched like a dead limb waiting to rot, but nobody walked it. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. I've seen this kind of lull before. Back when I worked government contracts on land usage disputes. When things went too quiet, it usually meant the other side had stopped using pitchforks and started using printers. I didn't have to wait long. On Wednesday morning, while sipping coffee and scrolling through email, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just a link and a message. "You're famous now." I tapped it. A local news article opened with the headline, "Lake access cut off by private owner. Blue Shore's residents protest privatization of nature." Right below it, a picture of my house, my dock, my face blurred just enough to be legally non-actionable. Karen was in the foreground, wearing a flowy floral blouse and an expression like she was mourning a national tragedy. I read the piece. She was quoted multiple times. For decades, this lake has been a gathering spot for our community. Families have launched canoes here. Children have swum in these waters. It's heartbreaking to see it blocked off by one individual who refuses to recognize shared history. Shared history, my ass. I barely saw a squirrel out there for the first 6 months after I moved in. The article made it sound like I'd built a wall across the Amazon. They even quoted a so-called local environmentalist, some college sophomore with a clipboard and a man bun, claiming the lake was part of a delicate ecosystem that demands public stewardship. You know what else is delicate? A federal dam permit. But nobody seems to care about that when you've got a soft-spoken Karen wringing her hands in front of a news camera. By Friday, things had escalated. It started with signs. Cardboard placards stuck into the side of the road like picket graves. "Let the people swim." "Nature belongs to everyone." "This lake is not your playground, Milo." And then came the protest. No, not a few angry moms shaking fists. This was organized. Over 50 people marched along the HOA side of the lake, holding signs, wearing matching shirts. Someone had printed a picture of me from Facebook and slapped the words "Lake Lord" under it in bold caps. They chanted, they drummed on plastic buckets, they carried laminated quotes from some nonsense environmental blog claiming privatized lakes accelerate ecological collapse. One guy even dressed as a beaver and kept yelling, "You don't own water." Man, I half expected Greenpeace to parachute in. Karen was front and center, of course, giving an interview to a local TV station while standing at the edge of the fake trail, like she was unveiling a memorial. "We aren't against private property," she said, somehow keeping a straight face. "We're just for access. This lake belongs to the spirit of the community. It's always been that way." The camera panned behind her to show the public trail signs her crew had nailed into my trees. I felt my blood pressure spike. They were painting me as a villain, some miserly troll hoarding a lake like gold. And the worst part, it was working. The HOA Facebook page was flooded with support. People I'd never met were sharing hashtags like "You're such Free Wolf Mirror" and "Such No More Lake Lords." Karen even set up a GoFundMe called Restore Community Lake Access, and within 2 days, it had raised over $3,000. I needed to hit back, not with threats, with truth. So I made some calls. A friend of mine, Julie Ricks, ran a regional YouTube channel called Land and Liberty. She'd done exposés on eminent domain abuse and shady zoning laws. When I told her the story, she didn't hesitate. HOA trying to fake a trail and protest a private lake with fake science. Oh, I'm in. That weekend, she brought a drone team, 2 GoPros, and a legal consultant. We filmed everything. Full walkthrough of the property line, the dam construction records, the original Army Corps documentation, the bogus trail, the falsified HOA map. I showed them the surveillance footage, the fake signs, the kayak guy, the dog crapping next to my shed. We even caught a few protesters walking through my yard during the filming. Julie narrated the whole thing like a true Southern-born, steel-spined patriot. This is what happens when you let petty tyranny wear pearls and call itself a neighborhood association. The video was titled, "HOA Tries to Steal My Lake. Here's How I Fought Back Legally." It dropped on Monday. By Tuesday morning, it had over 100,000 views. By Friday, over 300,000. Comments flooded in from all over the country. People were livid for me. For the first time, I was the one getting support. TikTok got hold of it, and suddenly there were memes. Karen pointing at a lake. "We've always had access." Me holding paperwork. "No, you've had trespassing." Teenagers were reenacting the faux historic plaque scene in backyards. Someone made a parody song. "You don't own the moon, Milo." Even the local news had to do a follow-up segment, this time including my side. Karen, she started to crack. I saw her in one clip dodging questions, visibly annoyed, no longer composed. Her veneer was wearing thin. And that GoFundMe. Someone flagged it for fraud. It got pulled. I wasn't just back in the game. Now I had an audience. I didn't expect to become a local celebrity, especially not over a lake. But within a week of the video going live, I couldn't go into town without someone giving me a thumbs up or shouting across the hardware store, "Hey, you show that HOA who owns what?" It wasn't just local buzz. The comments were pouring in by the thousands. Property owners, rural folks, libertarians, outdoor types, retired vets, even a few lawyers. Everyone had a story about a Karen, a board president, an HOA war gone stupid. My inbox went from dust collecting to exploding with requests, interviews, podcast invites, even an online merch guy offering to print Lake Lord shirts. The kicker, my side of the story had finally made it onto a local TV affiliate, with the footage from Julie's YouTube report spliced in. I sat on my porch that night with a beer, watching a news anchor say the words, "The HOA's claim appears to lack legal merit, as county records confirm the lake was privately constructed and remains under private ownership." Hearing that on live television felt better than any courtroom win. But I wasn't done. While Karen was still trying to pretend everything was fine, smiling through gritted teeth and awkwardly declining interviews, I was tightening the noose. First, I filed an official complaint with the County Land Use Commission. Using the drone footage and archived maps, I highlighted the unauthorized construction of the trail, the signage falsely indicating public access, and the clear encroachment on private land. I cited zoning codes, violations of environmental buffers, and potential liability issues for the county if someone got injured on that illegal path. Next, my attorney Alex drafted a complaint to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Why? Because someone had dug a shallow channel from the HOA shoreline to connect with a runoff stream, an improvement they called it, likely meant to imply historical water linkage. We had satellite images from 5 years ago showing no such stream existed before Karen's crew got creative with shovels and drainage pipes. We flagged it as an unpermitted alteration of a watershed. DEQ doesn't screw around with that. If you so much as touch a frog's puddle in this state without clearance, they'll slap you with a 5-figure fine. Then came the crown jewel, a formal petition to the county recorder's office to invalidate the HOA's updated community map on the basis of fraudulent representation. We submitted documentation proving that no recorded easement or shared use existed and that the map had been filed without consent or proper disclosure. Alex wrapped it all up in legalese so sharp it could cut through Karen's Botox. We didn't just say it was wrong, we said it was knowingly wrong. But the move that really tipped the scales? The second video. Julie and I released it exactly 1 week after the first, titled Karen's Trail of Lies: How HOA Presidents Fake History to Steal Land. This time, we went full scorched earth. Time-stamped aerial shots showing untouched land back to 1980. Expert commentary from a former Army Corps engineer who personally worked on the original dam project. Testimony from my late grandfather's friend, now in his 70s, who confirmed, on record, that not a single neighbor had ever been invited to use the lake. Not once. The video blew up even harder than the first one. Within 72 hours, it had 500,000 views. Reddit picked it up. There were memes, animated reenactments. Someone did a dramatic reading of Karen's fake trail signs over piano music. Lake Lords was trending on Twitter, and Karen. She was unraveling. She made the mistake of going live on a Facebook stream to clarify the HOA's position. She lasted 11 minutes before rage-quitting mid-sentence after someone asked her if she'd like to apologize to the fish. The comments were brutal. She tried to delete the video, but it had already been clipped and reposted a dozen times. Somewhere between the backlash and the DEQ email requesting a site inspection, Karen disappeared from public view. The trail went quiet. The placards vanished. No more protests, no more interviews. Just wind rustling through trees and a very satisfying silence on my southern slope. Then the letter came. An official response from Blue Shores HOA stating they were temporarily suspending all organized events involving the lake or bordering properties pending internal review of community boundaries and legal standing. It was written like a peace offering. A soft retreat. No apology, of course, just the language of a losing side trying to backpedal with its dignity intact. Too late. I wasn't interested in temporary. I was interested in permanent, so I finalized everything with Alex. All the footage, the violations, the fraudulent filings, the online harassment, the trail, the public defamation, the false emergency call, the trespassing, it was all consolidated into one tidy legal package. We filed the lawsuit the next morning. But this wasn't just a property suit anymore. It was a public reckoning. Courtrooms aren't like TV. There's no dramatic music, no last-second confessions, no judges banging gavels every 5 minutes. What you do get is a lot of waiting, a lot of muttering from attorneys, and the occasional poorly timed cough from someone who should have stayed home. But from the moment I walked into the Buncombe County Courthouse with Alex at my side and 3 binders under my arm, I knew one thing. We were going to bury them. Blue Shores HOA tried to act casual. Karen wasn't even at the first hearing. Instead, they sent a lawyer who looked like he'd Googled property law North Carolina the night before and printed out a Wikipedia page for comfort. He kept saying things like customary usage and community heritage access, like those were magic phrases that erased deeds. They weren't. Alex started light, presenting the GPS-marked property boundaries, the title history, and the Army Corps permit for the dam. We had video evidence, historic aerial maps, expert testimony from a retired engineer, and multiple legal precedents showing that lakes created via artificial damming on private land remain private unless explicitly deeded for shared use, which mine never was. Their lawyer fumbled through arguments about historical neighborhood recreation, citing photos of kids swimming, none of which were dated or showed location metadata. One turned out to be from a completely different lake. Karen had sent them in. Bold move, considering we had time-stamped drone footage and photos of the shoreline over 4 decades with 0 trails, docks, or signs of use from the HOA side. Then came the part I'd been waiting for, the counterclaims. We didn't just defend. We attacked. Fraudulent misrepresentation, submitting a fake trail map to the county without legal basis, trespassing, video evidence of repeated unauthorized use of my land. False emergency report, the 911 call that got me zip-tied on my own dock. property damage from the illegal trail construction, including disturbed vegetation and broken fixtures. Defamation, public statements made by Karen to the press implying I was mentally unstable and dangerous. Emotional distress and reputational harm, backed by video clips, online harassment, and even death threats I received after her media circus. The courtroom was quiet during most of it, until Alex played the video where Karen called me a danger to the community while standing next to a kid roasting a marshmallow on my fire pit. Then she played the clip of Karen saying on video, "The lake's not technically ours, but we've always used it, so he'll just have to deal with it." The judge didn't say anything, but he wrote a lot down. The turning point came when Alex presented the environmental violation letter from the DEQ, the one confirming unauthorized alterations to a watercourse linked to the HOA trail. Not only was that illegal, it meant the HOA might be on the hook for federal-level scrutiny. Suddenly, their attorney looked pale. Karen finally showed up for the second hearing. She was wearing all white, like she was attending a garden party instead of her own legal eulogy. She didn't say a word. Her lawyer wouldn't let her, but she glared at me like I'd set her house on fire. The judge requested one more week for deliberation. Then came the verdict. I didn't need to hear it twice. We won. Every single claim upheld. The trail was deemed a violation. The signs were labeled deceptive. The 911 call? Knowingly false. The judge ordered the HOA to pay damages totaling $890,000, including full cost of repairing my land, legal fees, punitive damages for the false emergency report, compensation for public defamation and emotional harm, fines tied to the environmental violations. But it didn't stop there. The judge issued a permanent injunction against Blue Shores HOA and Karen Devlin, forbidding any member or officer from accessing, promoting, or implying access to any part of my lake or land. The HOA was further ordered to issue a formal public retraction and remove all digital or printed materials suggesting otherwise. Karen, she got personally sanctioned for filing false documents and statements. The court didn't jail her, but she walked out of that courtroom with a 3-year ban from holding any leadership role in a registered HOA and a personal restraining order forbidding her from coming within 50 feet of my shoreline. The best part? The judge said this, word for word. This court finds that Mr. Avery has not only demonstrated legal ownership, but has endured targeted harassment under the guise of community action. That ends today. Alex shook my hand and said, "This wasn't just a win, it was a public execution. Life got quiet after the trial. No more shouting from across the lake. No kids cannonballing off my dock. No folding chairs, no trail, no cardboard protests. The only sound I heard now on Sunday mornings was the wind through the pines and the occasional red-tailed hawk screeching over the water like it finally had space to breathe. For a while, I thought the silence would feel like victory. Instead, it felt like recovery. People from the other side of the lake, the same people who once marched with signs and beaver costumes, started avoiding eye contact. A few even packed up their lakefront homes and moved. But some came around. About a month after the verdict, an older man in a fishing vest, Ron, I think, came by with a six-pack and a sheepish grin. "I had no idea what was really going on," he said. "Karen told us you were some angry outsider trying to take away public land. Hell, my wife made me wear one of those 'Lake belongs to all' shirts." He looked down. "Guess that didn't age well." I cracked a beer and handed him one. "Am better late than never." It didn't happen overnight, but the narrative shifted. Karen had spent years weaving this myth about community tradition, unity, shared resources. And in less than 2 months, it had all unraveled. People started seeing her for what she was, a petty tyrant in a cardigan, high on power and allergic to boundaries. Her fall was fast and public. After the court ordered her removed from HOA leadership, the board didn't even fight it. One of the younger members took over as interim president and immediately issued a formal apology, both to me and to the local news outlets. The actions of our former president do not reflect the values of our community. We respect private property rights and the legal rulings made in this matter. The apology aired during the 6 o'clock news while I was pressure washing the dock. I didn't bother watching. My neighbor texted me a clip of it, though, with the caption, "You made HOA blink first." Karen? Last I heard, she sold her house at a loss and moved to Florida. Someone said she tried joining a new HOA board there. I'd pay real money to see how that turned out. But the story didn't end with her. One morning, I got a call from a state representative's office. Word had spread about the lawsuit, the viral videos, the false trail, the abuse of process. They were reviewing HOA overreach cases across North Carolina, and someone had flagged mine as a textbook example of exactly what needs reform. Would I be willing to speak at a state hearing? I said yes. A month later, I stood in front of a committee room in Raleigh, holding up a copy of my deed in one hand and a blown-up photo of Karen's public lake access sign in the other. I told them everything: how one HOA tried to rewrite history, how a lie became an ordinance, and how the only thing that stopped it was ironclad paperwork and a stubborn refusal to shut up. They listened. I even got applause. After that, I was invited to join a homeowners' rights coalition. A few of us started drafting legislation aimed at curbing HOA abuse, mandatory transparency rules, penalties for false claims, easier ways for homeowners to fight fraudulent bylaws. I never expected to become a figurehead. I just wanted to sit by my lake in peace. But if standing my ground helped someone else keep their porch, their fence, their pond, their freedom, then fine. Let them call me the Lake Lord. I've been called worse. Now, the dock's repaired. The gates are upgraded. There's a new metal sign at the trailhead, legal, certified, and registered with the county. Private property trespassers will be prosecuted. And just beneath it, in smaller print, we are not responsible for wounded egos. The mailbox is calm. The trail is overgrown. The fish are biting. And for the first time in a long time, I sleep without checking the cameras. It took months of hell, but now the lake is finally what it was always meant to be. Mine.